lost you. I feel like
an epic weekend is finally here. We get ready for Taylor Serrano, Stevenson against Zepeda, AEW All In, WWE's epic weekend of epicness, plus the Canadian Football League and the red-hot Toronto Blue Jays. A lot to get to, so let's get into it. Couch Potato Diary Live, presented by Sea of Dead, starts right now. Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Friday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for hanging out with us today here on a Friday. It's going to be a fun one coming up with you guys today. We're going to start with some Blue Jays talk because they have been red hot, and people seem to be loving talking about it, and there's always something to talk about with this team. So we'll get into that, some CFL talk, and then if you're here for the fights, we got a lot of them, as it is Taylor against Serrano for the third time, Stevenson against Zepeda for the 1,000,000th time. It feels like Stevenson has a chance to move up a tier in boxing's list, and we will get into a big weekend in professional wrestling with AEW All In and WWE presenting 3 different shows. So that's what's coming up on the agenda today. As always, we're presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for this great Calgary swag. We got the Calgary Cannons hat here. We got some Stampede Wrestling stuff and a lot of other great Calgary shirts to help you rep this City. Also, if you need some fuel, and look, it's going to be a busy weekend. We're going to need that fuel, guys. So, swiftenergy.gg, use the code PKPrimetime for the 25% off. As always, we are live, YouTube, Twitch, and Kick. If you have any questions, send them my way in the chat. Doesn't matter if it's not what we're talking about in the moment, send them my way, and we will get to them as quickly as we possibly can. Deeds, already asking about the Blue Jays. Happy to see Deeds in the chat saying Twitch is less twitchy today. Hopefully that will continue. So let's get into the Blue Jays conversation as Deeds is asking about some trade deadline conversations. So we may as well start with looking at the Toronto Blue Jays and what could be ahead here in the month of the trade deadline. It is trading season in Major League Baseball, and for the Toronto Blue Jays, they have put themselves firmly in the buyer spot thanks to a phenomenal run of excellent baseball that they have played, getting into first place in the American League East, now with their sights on the Detroit Tigers and Houston Astros, so they can avoid that pesky wildcard round that has been such a problem for them in the last little bit. Do have a couple of other Blue Jay notes that I want to get to, but Deed starting out with a very good question in the Twitch chat. With how the Jays are sitting, what do you chase at the trade deadline? And with Bo not signed, do you take a chance with trading Nimmala? I will say I did a video looking at what the Blue Jays' top priorities should be going into this trade deadline period that they are in. So went a little bit more in depth in that video there, but we can still talk about where the Blue Jays should be going. I think there's a couple of ways that the Blue Jays can go here. I think the main focus needs to be the starting rotation, but just pitchers in general. I think the bullpen is a massive, massive need for this team, and I think a very good top-of-the-line starting rotation would be the next place I would look. So I think you need another leverage reliever in the bullpen to make life a little bit easier and take some of the immense workload that has been placed on these guys off of them and see how you can kind of progress with, more than a couple of guys that you trust in that bullpen and take some of the pressure off. But then I do think that starting pitching depth at the very least needs to be acquired by this ball club. I mean, you just saw it against the White Sox there with Lauer. Looking at his hand, shaking his hand out, that could be a blister issue. If he goes down, I genuinely don't know what they do. And I don't want to be going with bullpen games as this team is chasing an American League East title. I think that's a very bad way of going about life. So I think you need some starting pitching depth, and I think you can, shoot high for a potential starting pitcher. I think that I am comfortable with Gausman, Barrios, and Bassett in a playoff series, but I'd be more comfortable if there was a real, stone cold ace at the top of it. I love hearing some of the talk that maybe it is a Jake DeGrom that they might be focusing on. We know this organization likes to go big game hunting. They miss a lot, but they like to go big game hunting when it comes to that. The other part of this question I do think is very interesting as well. With Bo not signed, do you take a chance with possibly trading Nimmala? Arjun Nimmala, one of the top prospects in the Blue Jays system, and certainly the top prospect of the position players. I would have to be blown away by a trade. I am not trading Nimmala for a leverage reliever. This is, if you are doing that, then we are kind of talking about the upper echelon of starting pitchers. That is the only time I am considering it. I do think that, I think Nimmala is going to be very, very good. I do think that the acquisitions that the Blue Jays made and kind of how they have set themselves up put them in a spot where maybe there is already a little bit of Bo insurance. Trying to think of a pun there, none's coming, so we'll just move on. But I do think that there is already some insurance there. When they go out and acquire Andreas Jimenez from the Cleveland Guardians, there was a lot of talk that, okay, year one, this guy's going to be a second baseman, and he's one of the best defensive second basemen, maybe the best defensive second baseman in all of baseball. But He's going to be there. And then if something happens with Bo, either this team does not re-sign Vlad, or Bo is just like, nah, I'm not doing it, man. I'm out of here. A lot of talk was that you can move him to shortstop, and then you could still go with Clement at second, Jimenez at shortstop, with Barger, let's say, at third. It's not, oh my God, illegal, watch out Yankees type of an infield, but you can get by on that. And then whatever money you are not spending on Bo, you can go out and try to make a big splash that way. And so you already have a bit of Bo Bichette insurance there. So Namala is not an untouchable for me. I'm not actively shopping him around, but if it's the difference between getting Paul Skeens or not, then yes, obviously. And I know that's not where you were thinking. It would have to be an absolute game changer for this team. Like, I am not making a trade involving Namala or Savage, for that matter, without having it be a gigantic needle mover. Like, I have to look at a trade involving the top prospects for the Blue Jays, and I have to look at it and say, after this, can we win a World Series? And the answer has to be unequivocally yes, and it has to make us one of the favorites in the American League to do that. So I would be very picky, but I would do it if the right thing came along. The DeGrom aspect of it is interesting. I would have concerns about trading for someone with that type of a injury history and giving up the top prospects that the Blue Jays are going to need to. Now, I just said I am all there for an all-in type of a move, but I would much rather the Blue Jays flex the financial muscle of bringing him in than giving up a ton of not draft capital, but prospect capital. I know they're going to have to give up some. I'm not saying that, hey, do you think they would do it for just Miles Straw, just 1-for-1? Obviously, they're going to have to give up quite a bit. And it's probably going to be maybe a little bit more than I would be comfortable with. But I would much rather the biggest part of it is, hey, the Blue Jays took on the whole contract, than it is, oh my God, they just gave up 5 prospects. So, short answer is I would take a chance, but it would have to be a very big return coming back in. No rentals, and not for a bullpen arm. There isn't one bullpen arm in baseball that'd be worth trading any of those guys for. So it's probably an ace starting pitcher, or an offensive piece that I'm not thinking of as one that could be available. But the Blue Jays might be getting an offensive piece back at some point, as Anthony Santander works his way back from injury. And I think it is an interesting conversation right now because of all the talk around George Springer, who is basically doing what the Blue Jays wanted Anthony Santander to do when they went out and signed him to that contract in free agency. Springer is the reigning player of the week since Santander got hurt. And this is where I think it gets a little bit tricky how you can piece these together. Since Santander got hurt, Springer has played 22 games at DH, 9 games in the outfield. For reference, Santander this year has 29 games at DH and 19 in the outfield. So, like I said, Springer is basically doing what we thought Santander was going to do with this ball club in terms of utilization and productivity. And the thing is, I don't think you can just say, okay, well, just go back to the way it was. Because since Springer started being the DH more, and I know that he is trying to do, what is it, professional hitter or something like that instead of designated hitter, but since he has taken on this role, he has .323 batting average with 10 home runs and 34 runs batted in. For reference, the 162 game pace on that is .323. That doesn't change. 48 home runs and 162 RBIs. That's absurd, that pace. A, I think he's going to fall off a little bit. But B, I don't know how you stop doing that. So A, I think with Santander, this gives you the opportunity. You're not rushing him back, right? This is not a, man, if you're 75%, your next rehab assignment is the designated hitter with the Blue Jays because we need something. This is a, let's make sure you are really right as rain before we get back into this, or before we get you back into this, and we can extend some rehab and really make sure that you are comfortable at the plate. And maybe while we're doing this, we were able to fix a couple of things that have been a problem with you hitting like 176 on the season. So the first part of it is take your time coming back, my guy. But then after that, I do think that you have to, at least while he is still hot, keep George Springer as the designated hitter for this team. And I get that that means you are probably sacrificing a little bit defensively with Santander in the outfield. And I do think that you will have to have some defensive substitutions with him ready for late game situations and everything like that. But it's something we've talked about with this team before. If they go out and add a real impact piece to the lineup, there are going to be young players who are playing well who are going to get less of an opportunity, which feels like it sucks. But I do also think that it is what great organizations have the tough time of doing. It's finding playing time for everybody. And so building up that depth is not a bad thing. And so I do think that when Santander comes back, there's going to have to be more time in the outfield for him, at least initially, because of how effectively George Springer is playing as this team's designated hitter. Now, as Dan Shulman has said a number of times, these things have a way of working themselves out. So maybe by the time Santander is back, maybe there's a couple of other things that have bumped around that allow the Blue Jays to really just not have to make a decision on that thing. But I think when everybody is healthy, I still think the status quo is probably the way to go for the Toronto Blue Jays. That is going to do it for the Blue Jays talk as we get ready for a weekend set with Oakland, not Oakland, the Athletics. So if you have, though, any other Blue Jays notes, send them in the chat. And if you're watching this after the fact, let me know in the comment section. Do you agree with kind of my synopsis on a couple of things there with the Toronto Blue Jays? Just a reminder that we are trying to grow things here at Couch Potato Diary. So if you could share this with your friends and just a couple people you don't like to throw them off, that would be fantastic. If you're watching, share the video. If you are listening after the fact, share the podcast episode. Those things really do help. Also remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you are consuming this. Let's move now to the world of the Canadian Football League. It is week 6 in the CFL, and we are starting with a really good measuring stick matchup between the Calgary Stampeders and Saskatchewan Roughriders to figure out where these two teams stand. And then after that, intrigue abound, as it is another interesting week of Canadian football. So let's get ready for week number 6. Always let that one go a little bit longer because it gets me fired up, ready to talk some football here on a Friday. It is week 6 in the CFL. As a reminder, if you're looking for more CFL content, you can find it over at 3 Down Nation. I do a couple pieces every week. One is the best bets for the week, and the other is reaction to the Saskatchewan Roughriders game. My thoughts after each one. So would love it if you could check some of that out. And so because of that, not going to go into full detail on every pick. It's just going to be, okay, who do I think is going to win and lose? Basically, we're not going to do point spread stuff or anything like that. If you want those, it is over for me at 3 down. But we begin with the Calgary Stampeders and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. This is a renewal of a rivalry. And, I mean, obviously they have played each other a bunch, but this is the first time in a little bit that both teams have been as relevant as they are in going into this matchup. I think with Calgary, a lot of questions were answered last week in an emphatic way when they beat up the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the Stampede Bowl. That was the first, okay, this team's legit now. That was the first one of those performances that we got from them. So I am very, very impressed with what I've seen from Calgary, and I am ready to believe that they are for real. On the Saskatchewan side, I think they're coming off of a similar performance where they really took it to the Lions and showed that they can be a complete football team for a complete football game instead of just playing with their food once they get a double-digit lead. That type of killer instinct is going to be necessary against Calgary, although one would suggest that maybe it won't come up, as maybe a double-digit lead may not be in the cards. I think that these are two very evenly matched teams. I think the main difference is going to be the battle of the big boys coming up here on Friday when you look at the offensive lines for both of these teams and just the battles in the trenches in general. Let's start with when Calgary has the football. Their offensive line dominated Winnipeg. That's how they won this game. Is Vernon Adams, I mean, yes, he showed some creativity, his escapability, and all of that, but this was mainly the work of the offensive line, creating a lot of opportunities, a lot of time for Vernon Adams to create, and also they created a lot of lanes for Dedrick Mills to have a 93-yard performance against Winnipeg in really just controlling the entirety of that football game. So that is where the Stampeders can really shine, and that is where I'm so fascinated by this matchup, because on the other side of it, Saskatchewan's run defense has been excellent for a year and a half now. Since Corey Mace came in, they have had the understanding we're going to make teams one-dimensional, and we are going to really, really clamp down on the run game. And they've been excellent at it until last week when Butler went nuts, going for 123 yards on the Riders. And now they weren't really threatened all that much through the air by Masoli, and also the lead got to a point where it's like, okay, yeah, run the ball, I guess, like, give her. But still, when this game was in doubt, that was still a problem for Saskatchewan. And so I am interested to see now if that was just a blip or if something has been figured out that Calgary can exploit. But that is going to be a monster battle in this football game. Can Saskatchewan make Vernon Adams as one-dimensional as you can, and at least be able to just focus on him and not worry about the running game? But where the big difference between these two teams, I think, lies is on the other side of the football when Saskatchewan has it. Because Calgary, this is where they have struggled. They have given up the third most rush yards a game this season, and that could be worse, but Winnipeg just abandoned the run after falling behind by forever in week number 5. Before that, though, Oliveira, I think he was averaging close to 5 yards a carry and had busted off a couple of pretty impressive runs. It's what teams do in this league a lot. And someone asked on the YouTube chat last week, what are plays that you wish teams would get away from or that annoys you? And it turned into a whole big thing. But this is something that the CFL does. I get annoyed by, okay, we're running it on first down all the time. When that is a down that you can help make life significantly easier for your quarterback. But I also get annoyed with, well, we're down by 10 and we just ran the ball once and it was for 2 yards. So let's not do it for 8 possessions in a row. Hey, teams do that a lot. And now Saskatchewan has benefited from that because teams will get stopped, and it is, I've said before, it is like the line from The Wire where sometimes who you are is enough, because they will run it, you will get stopped. It's like, well, can't do that now. And they just don't try. That kind of happened with Winnipeg against Calgary, where Oliveira had a few good runs, ran into a bit of a stop, and it was like 2nd and 8, and they just didn't run it after that. And it's a defense that I think you can exploit on the ground. So I thought Winnipeg did not do enough to showcase the weakness that Calgary has there. That's not going to be a problem for Saskatchewan. They are going to bang their head into that wall all game, and it has led to a big game for AJ Ouellette, who has 3 straight games of over 90 yards on the ground. I think the Riders may be getting some receiving help back soon, but either way, they have a deep receiving core with a very, very hard-nosed runner up the middle in AJ Ouellette. I think that there is an opportunity for this team to control the game in that way and try to run away from Calgary. And the last matchup, going a little bit more in depth on this one, because obviously it's where my attention lies, but the deep passing attack. Calgary has been able to hit some bombs over the first few weeks, with the exception, obviously, of the game against Ottawa, where it was just rainy and gross and dreadful the entire time. So, from that standpoint, a bit more difficult at times to air the ball out. But otherwise, Calgary has loved the deep shot, and that has been a big part of Vernon Adams Jr.'s game throughout his run as a very good quarterback in the CFL. And again, it's an area where Saskatchewan's defense is strong. The Riders have allowed the 3rd fewest completions of 30-plus yards this season. So again, it is a very interesting punch-counterpunch. The one thing I would say is that is a point to the Calgary side is Tavon Campbell isn't going to play in this game, and he has been great for Saskatchewan in the last couple of weeks now that he has kind of found his footing coming back from the National Football League. So there is a real interesting battle to be had in this one, and I think both of these teams are going to learn a lot about where they stand right now in the Canadian Football League coming off of this game. So my pick is going to be Saskatchewan, though. I just think that there are a couple of ways that Calgary's been able to exploit teams that Saskatchewan is going to be able to shut down in this matchup. Ottawa taking on Hamilton. The next two of these, the breakdowns won't be as in-depth because I think they're actually a little more simple. It's basically Hamilton is good and Ottawa isn't, is what the synopsis is. In writing the 3-down piece this week, I was like, well, I have to put more than that. But still, this Ottawa team is not good defensively. And this Hamilton team is starting to look good offensively. The Ticats have picked up 86 points in their last 2 weeks combined. They're going up against an Ottawa defense that has allowed 29 or more points in every game this season that wasn't played in a downpour. So that is not great. I feel like Ottawa's defense is very not good. They had a real difficult time against Edmonton last week, who hasn't looked that good against anybody. So aside from the help of Mother Nature and an act of God, I don't see Ottawa helping out, being able to slow down this Hamilton defense at all. So like this could be one where Hamilton, like you were looking up, and it's like, have they punted yet? Because it doesn't feel like they've punted yet. There are certainly concerns there. On the Ottawa side of things, like to look at the stats for Ottawa, you can't. Because, again, the game in the downpour, I think we are still early enough in the season that the stats from that get skewed because of that game. And offensively, they've used 3 different quarterbacks and 2 of them are bad. So it's tough to figure out what you are looking at statistically with this group. But I will say, like, they are looking better. And with Drew Brown at the helm, they can take advantage of a Hamilton defense that is also not awesome. So I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I do think, though, Hamilton's defense is just a little bit better. Ottawa's offense is just a little bit worse. And so I think over time, Hamilton does start to pull away in this football game. So I got the Ticats winning that one. And then lastly, it is BC taking on the Edmonton Elks. Edmonton, they look good against Ottawa. We just went through, though, Ottawa is not a good football team. BC's pretty good. They get a big win against Montreal last week, looking to rebound. I think that continues here with another good performance against Edmonton. BC has already beaten this Edmonton team once. I just don't see how Edmonton can slow these guys down defensively. And offensively, it's great that they got back on track against Ottawa, but this is a different team defensively than the Ottawa Red Blacks are. So again, it is oversimplistic. I think BC wins because they're a better football team, is basically what it comes down to. So I got the Lions winning there. So a little chalky this week, but I have Saskatchewan, Hamilton, and BC all picking up the wins. Now, let's move into the combat sports section of the show. Again, if you have any more CFL thoughts or anything that you want to talk about, let me know in the chat for those of you who are watching live. And if you have any disagreements on the CFL stuff, let me know in the comments if you are watching this video later. But now it's time to move into combat sports as a couple forever rivals meet in what could be the final chapter of one of the most important rivalries in boxing history, with Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano headlining at Madison Square Garden. The last time they did it was the first time it was a female main event at Madison Square Garden. Now it's just 2 of the all-time greats going head-to-head trying to settle a score. This is your preview for Katie Taylor against Amanda Serrano 3 from Madison Square Garden. It is an epic rivalry that has been very, very close, and it maybe comes to an end this weekend. Tonight, actually, as it is Katie Taylor against Amanda Serrano for boxing greatness, basically. There's unified titles on the line, yes, but there is a number 1 pound-for-pound ranking that is up for grabs as well, and maybe GOAT status also. So, no pressure going into this big bout at Madison Square Garden. So let's break it down. You have Katie, the Bray Bomber Taylor, who is 39 years old, standing at 5'5", with a 66-inch reach out of the orthodox stance, born in Bray, Ireland. She now trains in Connecticut with a record of 24-1, 6 wins by knockout, 18 requiring the judges' scorecards, including the last one, where she picked up a decision win over Amanda Serrano on the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul undercard in November of 2024 at AT&T Stadium. She has 2 wins over Amanda Serrano. Neither of them have been overly popular, as Serrano outlanded her in the last bout, I believe in both bouts, actually. She's 2-0 against Serrano, both by decision. She is 3-0 against fighters with the last name of Serrano because she beat Amanda's sister Sydney back in 2018. Taylor had a 13-fight win streak snapped by Chantel Cameron, who she then avenged that loss against. Her last KO win was in 2019 against Rose Vellante in a unification bout at lightweight. She is the undisputed super lightweight champion, and with her opponent this evening is the first woman to headline a boxing card at Madison Square Garden. The challenger is Amanda, the real deal Serrano, 36 years old, at 5'5.5", with a 65-inch reach. She is a southpaw who now resides in Brooklyn, New York, after being born in Puerto Rico. She is 47-3-1 on the career, with 31 wins by knockout. There's also a no contest on the resume there. Her last fight was the unanimous decision loss against Taylor back in November of 2024. She has lost to Taylor twice. The loss in the first one ended a 28-fight winning streak. The loss in the second one ended a 6-fight win streak. She certainly brings more knockout power into the cage, or into the ring, with knockout wins in 7 different weight classes. She is the unified featherweight champion, holding multiple belts there, and has won the most titles in women's boxing history, with 7 divisions that she can claim a crown to. This is the rivalry of all rivalries in women's boxing, and has really put both fighters on the map to the point where they are headlining a show on Netflix coming up later on tonight. Part of it has been the action that they have. Part of it has been just how good these boxers are. They have put on 2 absolutely classic fights, and they are, I think, without a shadow of a doubt, the fighters of their generation. The issue is that part of the build for this is around the controversy. I've said it in the lead up to it. Not often do you lose twice to someone and get a trilogy fight out of it, especially immediately after the second one. But that's where we are at right now, because 62% of the media scored the second fight for Serrano, and both times you have both of the first 2 fights. 2022 at Madison Square Garden, it's a Taylor split decision, with 2 judges seeing it 96-94 for Taylor and 1 seeing it 96-94 for Serrano. You have Taylor in the second one getting it 95-94 on 3 judges' scorecards. So we are talking about razor thin margins between these two. And so to say that it is for the undisputed championship today, this rivalry has been anything but undisputed, despite one side being undefeated over the other. It is a classic matchup where you have the technical boxer, the counter striker in Taylor, going up against the volume power puncher that is Amanda Serrano. A lot of people are picking Serrano in this fight. A lot of people are saying this one will go to a decision, which I think that there is no reason to believe that it won't. I do think if you want a bit of a value play, just to take the under on that and say, yeah, you know what, at some point, these two who are both past the age of 35, one of their chins may fail at some point here, or a clash or whatever. Like, we saw a pretty bloody fight in that second encounter. So if you want to take just the judges won't be required, I think there could be a little bit of value in that. A lot of people are picking Serrano because you can make a very compelling case that she won the first 2 fights. I do think there is a little bit of oversimplifying going on with that. A lot of people thought Serrano won the first 2, as mentioned. But I don't think it was, well, yeah, she won like by 9 rounds. I don't know what we're talking about here. Like, if Taylor is winning, then she is winning by 1 or 2 rounds. So it's not like neither fight has been close and Serrano just was robbed or something like that. these have been very, very close fights, and this likely will be that again. I do think, though, coming off of a second fight where she thought the judges didn't go her way, I do think that Serrano is going to adjust things a little bit. And I don't think she can put more pressure on, but I do wonder if she looks for, and it's not because you want to say like, oh yeah, more impactful shots. She was landing more impactful shots in this, but I just wonder if there is a bit more of a change in the game plan to make sure that she doesn't get hit as much and make it a little bit more judge friendly. Like I feel like she is going to adapt things a little bit in this one. Not that Taylor won't, but I feel like Serrano has a few more ways that she can kind of improve on and alter things from the first couple of fights that will allow her to get the win here. So I know that it has been the trendy pick. I am going to pick Serrano, but not just because, oh, well, she actually won the first two fights. It is because I think that there is going to be a couple of adjustments made from her camp to maybe make this a little bit more on the judge-friendly side to try to get a little bit more involved when it comes to winning these fights. And I also think that there was maybe a recognition that she started a little bit too late in the last one. And I think that's probably not going to be the case in this bout. So I am picking Serrano to win this one. If you want to go the conspiracy route, if Taylor wins this fight, it's done. If Serrano wins this fight, you can probably do one more. At least. Maybe even two. So in terms of maybe hoping the cash cow can continue, I do wonder if maybe the judges have a bit of a lean on the Serrano side coming up tonight. But overall, there isn't a whole lot that separates these two. They are incredibly talented. They are incredibly tough. And they are incredibly evenly matched. And I think it's going to be a phenomenal bout coming up on Friday night. I just think Serrano has a bit of the edge going into this trilogy bout. Let me know what you think, either in the live chat or in the comments below if you're watching this after we recorded it live. But that's not the only big fight that is happening this weekend, as Shakur Stevenson wants to once again move into the elite echelon in the sport of boxing. But once again, we are just begging for this guy to look like the elite level fighter that a lot of us think he is. So let's go into another fight preview, getting ready for Stevenson Zepeda coming up tomorrow. The WBC Lightweight Championship is going to be on the line on Saturday night as Shakur Stevenson defends his belt against William Zepeda. Let's break it all down. We will start with the WBC Lightweight Champion Shakur Stevenson, who now enters the ring 28 years old with a height of 5'8" and a reach of 68 inches. The Southpaw was born in Newark, New Jersey, and he holds an undefeated record of 23 wins and 0 losses. 11 of those wins coming by knockout. His last fight was a TKO win over Josh Padley in February of 2025 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to retain the WBC Lightweight Championship. He is the former WBO Featherweight Champion, WBC Super Featherweight Champion, WBO Super Featherweight Champion, again, current WBC Lightweight Champ, and the Ring Magazine Super Featherweight Champion. He goes up against William Zepeda, who's 29 years old, 5'9" with a 69.5-inch reach, the Southpaw born in San Mateo, Mexico. He is also undefeated, going 33-0 with 27 wins by knockout. His last fight was a majority decision against Tevin Farmer back in March of this year that allowed him to retain the WBC Interim Lightweight Championship. A lot of talk coming into this, and the selling of it not being a one-sided fight is Zepeda, is that record, the knockout percentage. 33 fights, he's knocked out 27 opponents. The problem is, those 6 decisions, 4 of them have come in the last 6 fights. As the competition has stepped up, those knockouts have started to dwindle away. So I don't think that this is obviously, it's a fist fight, so knockouts can happen, but I don't think this is the, oh my god, a big power guy that people will want to sell you that people want to sell you on. I just think that, Stevenson, obviously, defensively, he outclasses everybody. And that power from Zepeda, it will be there. I just don't know if it's going to be there consistently enough against Shakur Stevenson and the defense that he has, the movement that he has, and the offense that he can put on. I feel like the strength of Zepeda in this isn't as strong as people think and isn't going to be nearly as effective against Stevenson. I think it's a bad matchup for him. In theory, it's the type that you want to see Shakur against, someone who will put that pressure up, add that urgency for Stevenson, and see if he can actually drag an interesting, entertaining fight out of it. I don't know if that is going to be necessarily the case here. That's the way Zepeda is going to have to fight. You don't want to get reckless because Stevenson is going to be able to pick that apart, but you do want to amp that pressure up and create a little bit of tension, create a little bit of awkwardness on the Stevenson side, and just hope that that pressure is able to break through with one big shot. But overall, I just feel like Stevenson's too good. It's oversimplistic, I know, but I just feel like Stevenson better at boxing than Zepeda is. I think the defense is going to limit the knockout opportunities. I think that expertise in the movement is going to be there. And Stevenson, we keep saying it, he has to know that this has to be impressive, right? And I get the last one needed to be too, and we all should, I am, for some reason, just going to give him the benefit of the doubt one more time. But with the potential of a fight against Davis coming up, this has to look good. This has to look spectacular. And I have to believe Stevenson knows that. And I feel like he is going to be one who can now put that together and try to come away here with an emphatic victory on Saturday night. So I am going to go with Stevenson, and I'm going to say he finishes this bout on Saturday. So those are my picks for the big boxing fights that we are going to see this weekend. Let's move into the world of professional wrestling. While the WWE is trying to counterpunch AEW, that promotion is putting on their biggest show of the year in what has been their best run in years. Let's get ready for AEW All In coming up this weekend. This is your AEW All In preview as they are in Texas for their biggest show of the year, and honestly, their biggest show in a long time. We have been talking all this week about how this feels like a new era for AEW and the start of something big for this company again. I am trying to not put too much weight into it, but it does feel like there's an opening that WWE has left them, and there is an opportunity, given that some of the changes they have made, there is an opportunity for this company to actually grow and to actually look like they know what they're doing creatively and actually keep up this momentum. Very, very important card for AEW. So let's get into it. We're not going to do the pre-match shows, but we will start with the Ops taking on the Death Riders for the Trios titles. That is Shibata, Hobbs, and Samoa Joe taking on Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, and Gabe Kidd. I feel like this night is going to be a way to turn away from the Death Riders as kind of being this main focus of the company and this kind of House of Torture-esque run that they are on, but I don't think it is going to be the permanent end of the Death Riders. And so because of that, I do think that this is the way for them to keep alive, basically, is to win this trios match. So I feel like it will be Claudio Wheeler and Gabe Kidd coming away with a victory. I am sure that Gabe Kidd's contractual status in Japan is going to maybe confuse this a little bit, but I do think that there is still an opportunity here for the Death Riders. They have multiple members. You can do a free bird thing with them. And so I think that because Moxley is going to lose, I think, in the main event, spoiler alert, I feel like if you still want to keep this group as a relevant threat, there still needs to be probably some gold on them. And so I think that this is now the way you kind of do that. Give them the Trios title. The Hurt Syndicate defend the tag team titles against Jet Speed and the Patriarchy in a three-way dance for the tag team titles. I understand they're trying to set up some drama with the concertos that we have seen on Dynamite and Collision. I don't think I'm going to buy that the Hurt Syndicate are going to lose the tag team titles in this bout. I don't. I don't feel like that is going to be a thing that is going to happen. The Patriarchy, it's been a fine storyline. It has been some of Christian's best work. It's not on the level of the Hurt Syndicate. Jet Speed, they're fun. It's cool, I get it. I just don't see either of these teams being the ones that take the belts off of the Hurt Syndicate. So I think this is just going to be a good spotlight for a couple of very good wrestlers in AEW's tag team division. Hurt Syndicate, I have picking up the win. TNT title on the line, Kyle Fletcher against Adam Cole, baby. Adam Cole trying to get back into the spotlight and find that relevancy that was left behind when he found the devil. It hasn't been great. It has not been an overly inspiring TNT title run, and I think that this is what this belt was for. Guys like Kyle Fletcher getting that opportunity to shine as the champion and having him have that belt on Dynamite but really be the main guy on Collision, I think would be a good kind of next step for him. He is not someone who is ready for a world title opportunity yet, but I do think that is coming. I do think that having him be the main secondary guy for a while, though, is a smart move. So I think Kyle Fletcher wins this one and becomes the TNT champion. Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay taking on the Young Bucks. If Swerve and Ospreay win, the Young Bucks are no longer EVPs, because that is how corporate law works. If the Young Bucks win, Swerve and Will Ospreay cannot challenge for a championship for a year. I like I said, I feel like the setting up of those stories and those stakes was just believable enough that I can see either side winning this one. Like, I think that you could do a year of Ospreay building his way up, trying to get a championship match, and being able to have it at All In next year, and have that be his big crowning moment as kind of the next face of All Elite Wrestling. So I think there is something you can do with that. I think Swerve... The thing with that makes it a little on the unbelievable side for me for Swerve is that you can do this and then turn him into just like really pissed off at the world bad guy again. But we kind of just did that, and we've established that this is someone the crowd is really, really behind. So I feel like there would be maybe a not awesome character change that would come with that one. The Young Bucks losing the EVP titles, I just feel like this has really run its course and isn't necessarily a character development that people have loved from the Young Bucks. A lot of unanswered questions still with the shredding of the documents and everything like that. I have said that it is time to go into a new era for AEW. That includes stopping this. So I will have Swerve and Ospreay beating the Young Bucks and coming away as the people who were able to strip them of their EVP titles. Women's Casino Gauntlet. I think that they have done a decent job of building up a few of the stories that you could have coming out of this. I think there are a lot of interesting challengers. A couple that I would like to see, because it's tough to really predict who is going to get a win in bouts like this, when we don't really know how long it is going to go and how many people are going to be in it or who all is going to be in it. I could see Tekla getting a run, like really rocket her into main event status. I think that's a real interesting one. I am always behind Willow, especially if Mercedes wins the women's championship match. Having Willow against Mercedes would be interesting. And I think you can do Athena in that role as well. I think she has certainly outgrown Ring of Honor, and this would be a very good spot to, again, shoot her up into the championship opportunity area. So those would be the ones that I would focus on. I guess if I were to give one solid pick, I think it's time for Willow to become a main event player. And so I would go with her as the winner of the Casino Gauntlet on the women's side. On the men's side, the big story around this has been MJF with Mark Briscoe, then MJF with a pretty good promo on Mystico on Collision. I feel like there is still more to do with Mystico and with MJF, so I don't think he gets his title opportunity out of that. I don't see Mark Briscoe getting his chance there. And so now you look at, well, where does this go then? Who is going to come in and pick up the championship victory, the championship opportunity coming out of this one? And I will admit, the reason I'm dragging this on is I still don't totally know who I think they could go with. Honestly, like the way the character has been, Beast Mortos getting an opportunity as the champion, I think would be a very fun kind of pivot for them to do, a bit more out there. I think that they've done a good job of getting away from some of the old vets and everything like that. But I still think there are maybe some young guys who aren't necessarily ready for that big next spot. I could see maybe like an Ibushi or someone along those lines getting it. But I honestly and genuinely don't have a super great answer as to who is going to win this. So maybe it is going to be MJF. And the Mystico match is just a little thing off on the side. I think a lot of people have predicted a hair versus mask match. Maybe you go title opportunity versus mask or something like that. So yeah, I really genuinely am curious to see what direction they go with the men's gauntlet. So I'm going to do what I was always told in sports broadcasting never to do, and that is to say, I don't know. So I don't know. The unified title will be created, I guess, as Okada takes on Omega. The Continental Championship and the International title will come together. They avoid the Intercontinental, the moniker that they could have had. I think that would have been funny. I think unified title is a really dumb name for a championship that isn't your main championship. But I could see, because of all the conversation about there being too many belts in AEW, I do kind of wonder if you unify this and then make the Continental Classic for this and the AEW World title or something along those lines. And like whoever wins this one gets a title for title match with the AEW champion, and they make it the undisputed AEW title. And then you are back to just AEW, TNT, and just a couple of singles belts on the men's side. Again, we're talking about fixing a lot of problems in AEW. We can push it a little bit further. As far as the build for this match goes, they have done such a great job of making Okada seem like an absolute badass heel that, like, going in, I kind of figured Omega probably get the win and just like, hey, good has prevailed. I think there's going to be enough of that, as we've kind of talked about on this show. Although, I guess looking at it now, I have the heels winning the trios titles, the heels winning the tag team titles still, a heel winning the TNT belt. So maybe we aren't as loaded on feel-good moments as I thought. But I do think that this is a time where Okada probably needs it a little bit more than Omega does. I think that Omega, his absence maybe has taken away from some of the star power, but Okada's presence has taken away from his star power. And that's the problem. I think seeing Kenny Omega, seeing the highlights, seeing his matches in AEW, you're still like, hey, that is the best bout machine. There have only been a couple of times in AEW where we have watched Okada perform and thought, that's the Okada we remember. And so, like, to have this guy who at one point was the definition of aura in professional wrestling, and this guy who was the best wrestler in the world at a point, to have him feeling like a mid-card character is just not what this guy was brought in to be. And so I think that this is the time where, again, wrongs are righted, and Okada is now feeling like a main event true blue superstar again, and I think he gets the win in this bout. Women's title on the line, Toni Storm against Mercedes Moné. It has been quite the undefeated run for Mercedes Moné, collecting championships all over. Does she get one more in the AEW championship with Toni Storm? My initial thought is yes. My initial thought is that Toni Storm has kind of done everything she can with this championship now, and it might be time to freshen things up a little bit and give Mercedes this title. But I could also see this being the first real setback for Mercedes as well. Overall, though, I do think that it will be Mercedes Moné who comes away victorious from this, and we are just able to kind of freshen up the championship picture a little bit. Not that Toni Storm is unfresh. She is amazing and incredibly entertaining, but probably could use some time off as well. And so I think that having her come back in a bit of a chase position would be a very good thing, and having Mercedes Moné stay hot and once again kind of reestablish that this is one of the better performers in the world as your champion, I think that is probably the way that they go. And then Texas Death for the World Championship. It is Moxley, Hangman in the main event of All In. I have said before, this is the changing of the guard in AEW. This is the moment that Hangman becomes the face of this company. I think he gets the win here, and I think the Death Rider story doesn't go all the way away. Moxley probably takes some time off, and the Death Riders kind of go upper mid-card, we will say. And this story that has frustrated everyone reaches its crescendo with it creating a new number one babyface in this company in the form of Hangman Adam Page, kind of culminating a story with Hangman where it can't win the big one, doesn't want to win the big one, and had turned pretty dark for a while, but has found his way back to the light to win the championship. I could see that kind of being the direction that they go. I think this match is going to be incredible. I think this is going to be very violent. I think it is going to kind of mirror WrestleMania 40, where there's going to be run-in, counter-run-in, run-in, counter-run-in. I could see Darby Allin coming back. I could see Orange Cassidy coming back. Adam Copeland coming back. I could see those guys finding their way back onto the roster and preventing any of these shenanigans from the Death Riders. So I think this is going to be a wild match, and I think at the end of it, Hangman stands tall as the new face of AEW and this promotion's champion. So that is the preview for AEW All In. A reminder, new wrestling podcast from Couch Potato Diary. It is the Living Room Lariat, available wherever you get your podcasts. It is all the wrestling content from Couch Potato throughout the week into one nice little podcast for you. So if you're a wrestling fan that likes the stuff that we do wrestling-wise, but doesn't want to sit through all the sportsy stuff, I get it. It's not for everyone. So that is your opportunity to go out and listen to all the wrestling content from Couch Potato Diary. So that's what AEW is up to this weekend. What about the WWE? They couldn't possibly be going up against the biggest show from AEW, right? Au contraire, they have three shows that they're putting on. The first is from NXT, as they will celebrate America with the Great American Bash. It's certainly American. Great? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Very much appreciated the new follow that popped up there. Thank you very much. This is your NXT Great American Bash preview. Went into NXT on Wednesday talking about my desire to see them actually add anything. And I will say, credit where credit is due, that entire show was focused on building up to this weekend. There wasn't maybe it was the sole focus of this program to build up to Great American Bash and Evolution. So let's run it down. Javon Evans against Jasper Troy. I have said I am a very, very big fan of Javon Evans. This is not the time for him to win, I don't think. I think this kid is a future world champion, no doubt, but Jasper Troy, in trying to build him up as this big kind of powerful heel guy, I think we are running out of big losses that we can give him. He loses in the title match. He loses in the number one contenders bout. Now he's got to pick up a win here. And it is unfortunate because Javon Evans, I think Javon Evans could genuinely be the guy who takes the belt off of Obafemi, sending Oba to the main roster and kind of starting his own era as a champion in NXT. But I think right now the project is Jasper Troy, and so that this is going to be one where he gets back into the win column, and they continue to build him up that way. Ethan Page against Ricky Saints for the North American Championship. NXT picks are always interesting because I could see both these guys going up to the main roster like tomorrow. And so like which one? I think Ethan Page, like again, they are both ready. It's a Falls Count Anywhere match. I feel like with all the damage that has been done to Ricky Saints, you almost have to get him the victory in this one to just so that it's not just a series of ass kickings and then the rivalry is over. And so I think Ricky Saints getting some of that momentum back, because it hasn't been a perfect start to his time in NXT, but allow that to kind of reset, allow him to feel like a big deal, and give him a championship win. And for Ethan Page, like I could see after that he moves up to the main roster. Sol Ruka taking on Izzy Dame for the Women's North American Championship. I I kind of wondered if this would be the time where we really see Zarya and Zarya and Sol Ruka start to split up a little bit. They teased it, then they didn't, then they teased it, then they did. I was wondering if this would be the time. I don't think it is going to be. I think what they could tell is something they did a little bit before with Fraser and Axiom, where one guy is going for singles gold, and the other one's like, hey, but we want the tag team titles, right? Like, we're a tag team. So, oh, yeah, of course. And then gets too beat up to really help out in tag team stuff. I think you could do that here, where Sol Ruka gets the win, but is too banged up to really help in the tag team title match coming up on Sunday, and you see more dissension in the ranks there. So I still think Sol Ruka retains, although, I mean, there's a lot of momentum behind the culling, so that this is not a stone cold lock. But I think Sol Ruka probably retains here. Also, I just have to say, just a quick aside, the culling's growing on me. And I know that's not a popular thing, this, like, Sean Spears being back and everything. I think it's become a little bit trendy to hate on this group. I'm really liking it. I think that it is it always the most creative? No. But I think it has been a very good way of introducing a couple of characters, and having Sean Spears be this kind of leader guy of this faction, I think is working. So that the culling has definitely hit me more than I was expecting. But I do think Sol Ruka comes away with a championship win. Jordan Grace and Blake Monroe against Fatal Influences, JC Jane, who is the NXT Women's Champion, and Fallon Henley. I think Jordan Grace gets her big moment at Evolution, so I think you put some doubt in for that match and have Fatal Influence get a win and build some momentum going into Sunday. And it's weird to say this, but add some legitimacy to your champion, who no one believes is the best on NXT right now. So have her pick up a real, genuine win, and then have her lose to Jordan Grace in the championship match. It is classic WWE 101, where the one who wins the first one doesn't get the second one, but I think that's probably how this is going to play out. And then Obafemi taking on Yoshiki Inamura. Again, it is the classic NXT conundrum. Obafemi is ready for the main roster. There is zero question that this guy is ready for that spot on the main roster. But no one on NXT is ready to take this championship from him and be the guy. I think Inamura, like I've said all week, there are some aspects of his game that I find interesting, and that he could one day be a main event level performer, at least on NXT. I just don't think he is there yet. So I don't think this is the one to be the banana peel that Obafemi slips on his way into the main roster. I think that this is still going to be a dominant win for the ruler, who is genuinely one of my favorite performers in all of professional wrestling right now. So Obafemi, the reign continues, in my opinion, on Saturday afternoon. But what about Saturday night? Well, we have a main event that at least has people talking, even if the WWE didn't talk about it a whole lot. Let's get ready for Saturday night's main event. In the WWE's rush to counter-program AEW, it feels like a few details have been left behind. This is your Saturday night's main event preview. If this show is going to be an hour long, Saturday night's main event, you could convince me of that with this match card. I don't know where we're getting a couple hours out of this, but we will see, I guess. Solo Sikoa against Jimmy Uso for the United States Championship. I don't think anybody is buying that Jimmy Uso is going to be the United States champion off of this. I think this is going to be an opportunity to make Solo look big and strong and pick up a win over a established name in Jimmy Uso. And I think, as with most things around the Bloodline and Bloodline adjacent stories, there's going to be a lot of shenanigans, we will say, going on with this particular program. I would imagine we get Tama Tonga, or Tala Tonga. We get the solo group that they're doing. Obviously, I think Jacob Fatu comes out, and a lot of talk again that maybe some new people could be coming in. I wouldn't be surprised if one more layer of backup comes in to help Jacob Fatu and Jimmy Uso to set up some kind of a six-man tag for SummerSlam. That's kind of where I think this one ends up going. But Solo ends up getting the win. Randy Orton against Drew McIntyre. As I said before, I hope that this is just the beginning of a fun rivalry, because these two feel like they could have a very entertaining program on their hands. But we will see what direction they end up going with it. I could see Drew McIntyre, getting the win here. He feels like a big deal right now, and coming back from injury, get that big win and have him be on the cusp of a championship opportunity. I think you could do that. Although I will say, if they do go with my thought of turning Cody heel at SummerSlam and having Randy Orton coming off of a title win, ain't the worst spot to be, or coming off of a big win on Saturday night's main event, isn't the worst spot to be in. LA Knight against Seth Rollins. I said it on Raw on our breakdown on Monday. I get LA Knight, he had a vignette and he hit the BFT at the end of the night. It still felt like an afterthought. So I think Seth Rollins probably gets a dub here. But like I said in our look ahead, I am wondering what this match looks like, because this is one of the better in-ring performers that LA Knight will go up against, and can he kind of mesh in with that style? I thought the match with Jacob Fatu was very, very good at WrestleMania, so can he elevate that game again here against Seth Rollins? And this is where I'm surprised we only got 4 matches on this card, because it's Gunther taking on Goldberg for the World Heavyweight Championship, and I, personally, don't think this is going to be a 20-minute match. I just don't. So I wonder if there is a big moment where Seth Rollins cashes in and that turns into like a 10-minute type of a match or something along those lines, right? I don't think so. I think Gunther probably gets the win here. Maybe we get a cash-in teased, but I don't think you would go in that direction with this one. So I think Gunther has done some amazing work. He ends up getting the championship win in a match that will probably surprise people with how much they enjoy it, is my official prediction for Saturday night's main event. That's Saturday. What about Sunday, as WWE Evolution happens for a second time? And this match card is, I think, significantly better than the buzz that it is getting. So let's buzz about it and talk about WWE Evolution. WWE Evolution is going to be their main event of the weekend, and if you're looking at ticket sales, it is not necessarily being treated as such. As this one, I think they've done a pretty good job of building it up, but it is just something that is lost in the sauce in what is an absurdly busy weekend for this company. When you look at how they are trying to counter AEW on Saturday, also, I believe it's a Beyonce concert that is in the area, so people are occupied over a summer weekend in Atlanta. So it is unfortunate that this one kind of ends up being a bit of an afterthought, because I think it's a pretty good card. Let's run through it. JC Jane against Jordynne Grace for the NXT Women's Championship. We've said for a bit that the Jordynne Grace full-time run in NXT has been a little bit underwhelming so far. The timing of it was really off, because she comes in at the same time as Stephanie Vaquer and as Julia. And so you just have 2 mega stars who kind of overshadow her a little bit. They're on the main roster now. Now is the time that Jordynne Grace gets the opportunity to show that she is a main eventer and to kind of have this division be hers for a little bit. I think she ends up getting the win over JC Jane at Evolution, and gets kind of this crowning moment. Battle Royal for a World Championship match at Clash in Paris. I think Nikki Bella probably gets it here. I know that probably wasn't initially the plan when she was going to go into this thing with Liv Morgan, but I think that she is the big name, wants to go to Paris, so why not put her in the championship match? I will say Nikki Bella is the one who gets the win in the Battle Royal. Otherwise, like, the hope for me is Stephanie Vaquer, who is absolutely ready for a championship opportunity. Could totally see it, too. But I feel like Nikki Bella is probably the one that they will go with. Just a quick aside on Stephanie Vaquer, because they've had all these things to kind of build up with, she has become a bit of an afterthought. Like, she popped up on NXT this week. I was like, oh yeah, haven't heard that music in a bit. So hopefully now that they only have one show to promote, Stephanie gets the airtime that she deserves, because she is a superstar. Tag team titles on the line. Judgment Day taking on Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, taking on Sol Ruka and Zarya, taking on the Kabuki Warriors. I think this match is going to be fun as hell. I think there are so many different moving parts in it. I could see them going with Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss as this, like, get Charlotte on both brands. You have the, oh man, maybe these people don't get along sort of a team, but also with what is going on with Charlotte right now, where she has the Players Tribune piece, where she was incredibly vulnerable about how difficult the WrestleMania build was, and with her going on Undertaker's podcast and everything like that, I feel like there is an attempt to get people behind her. And I think teaming up with Alexa Bliss, I think there's going to be a lot of fun to be had with that. And so I think that they are probably going to win the tag team titles there. My initial thought was Judgment Day keeps it, because I feel like the Roxanne Raquel tag team thing can build into a very effective jealousy angle with Liv Morgan, but I just think the Charlotte Alexa Bliss feud maybe ties into it a little bit more. Jade Cargill against Naomi in a no-holds-barred match. The important part of this is Jade looking good. She has the championship opportunity at SummerSlam, and so you want her to feel like she is a big deal. And you do not get that by having her lose to Naomi. So it sucks to have Naomi get this Money in the Bank win and now get another loss against Jade, but Jade is the project. Jade is the potential superstar. Not that Naomi isn't, but right now, that is the view of Jade. So she probably gets the win here to look strong going in to SummerSlam. Intercontinental title on the line. Becky against Bayley against Lyra in a triple threat match for the IC Championship. This match is going to be fun as hell. I cannot wait to see the in-ring masterpiece that these three are able to put on in this match. In terms of who wins it, I could see them going back to Lyra and continuing to build her up in that way. Because you could say, like, Bayley doesn't need it. Becky doesn't need it. Honestly, all three of them, I can see, like, you can make a compelling case that Becky is just kind of getting going with this Intercontinental Championship, and she is the one who can kind of help bring a little bit more prestige to this belt. Bayley, add another championship to her resume and kind of solidify her as one of the best of all time sort of thing. And like I said with Lyra, it is a young prospect who feels like has a lot of the pieces to be a star. They just haven't all come together for her just yet. In kind of talking it out, I feel like it's going to be Bayley. I think Bayley probably gets the win, and you can do a Bayley against Becky thing again for the IC title at SummerSlam. That feels like a SummerSlam thing, and this kind of heel turn that we're seeing from Valkyria, I think that will continue coming out of this one. Then our two main championship matches, as Tiffany Stratton takes on Trish Stratus for the women's WWE Championship. When Tiffany introduced Trish as the challenger, I think there was a bit of a from the crowd, which sucks because Trish, all-time legend, GOAT, all those things. But this is very similar to the Goldberg thing. Now, Trish, better in-ring performer, all of those things. But I don't think the crowd is super into nostalgia acts getting championship opportunities. That being said, I think this is going to be a fine match. And the one thing I will say, and I have been saying, is if you want Tiffany to continue in this babyface lane, I think you need Trish with her. Because this is the first time that Tiffany has been this type of a character in this company. Trish is perfect at it, and is kind of the blueprint they are trying to use for Tiffany Stratton. I think having Trish there as a manager, sometimes tag team partner, someone who can get physical in these sorts of things, I think that would be good to add some likability to this character going into a Jade Cargill feud going into SummerSlam. So I said it going into WrestleMania. I will say it again. I wish they would keep these two together. And then in what I presume to be the main event, it'll be Io Sky taking on Rhea Ripley for the Women's World Championship. I was asked on our lengthy Twitch stream yesterday, who is kind of your favorite performer right now? It is Io Sky. That being said, I think this ends up being Rhea's spotlight night. They view her as kind of the top in the company. Not that Io isn't. I think that she has really greatly improved her standing in this company. But I think Rhea feels like she is kind of the big deal and the superstar and kind of the face of the women's division. And I think having that be the spotlight coming out of Evolution and kind of the closing moment, I think would be very, very important for her and would be kind of a big moment for the company in pushing towards SummerSlam. So I think Rhea Ripley ends up getting the job done and will win the Women's World Championship coming out of Evolution. That is going to do it for the show today. Thank you all so much for hanging out. Again, if you just want the wrestling stuff, Living Room Lariat. There's going to be a couple podcasts this weekend. We're going to split up the focus, AEW and WWE. So a couple of podcasts coming out this week from Living Room Lariat. Subscribe to it wherever you get your podcasts. You can subscribe to Couch Potato Diary wherever you get your pods, and that includes Spotify as well as Apple Podcast. If you are listening, you can catch these live. We go live on twitch.tv/primetimepk, youtube.com/@couchpotatodiary, and kick.com/primetimepk. If you are watching and missed any of it, it's available in podcast form, and all the segments go up as their own videos on YouTube, and we break them up into different playlists. So if you just want basketball, if you just want CFL, if you just want wrestling or boxing or whatever, it's all there in playlist form for you on YouTube and Daily Motion as well. You can follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein. X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky, helping you keep up to date with everything going on with Couch Potato. Next week is going to be a little bit different than what we have had here over the last little bit, because it is starting a relatively lengthy venture of me filling in on Sportsnet 960 The Fan out here in Calgary. So for at least Monday, I'm going to try going an hour earlier with the stream. So Monday, we're going to go at 9 a.m. Monday morning to get all caught up and everything that happened in the world of combat sports over the weekend. And then after that, we will see if it worked and pivot from there. But 9 a.m. on Monday is the next time you can chat with me on the live streams. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Have a great weekend. Check out cfdead403.ca for that great Calgary swag. Get that energy from swiftenergy.gg using the code PKPrimetime, helping you get some fuel and some great flavors along the way. And I'll talk to all you guys next week.